What's up, guys? Tomorrow we have the chances of severe weather. There we go. Alright, so tomorrow we definitely have the chances of severe weather here across portions of central and northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, of course, and into portions of central northern Indiana and southern Michigan. This is the SPC outlook. I do not agree with their positioning of the tornado risk. So their tornado risk is kind of highlighted in this area. Well, they fixed it now, but originally they just had it up here across this area, which is incorrect. So they did fix it on their next update. So now this is the correct potential of tornado risk. It's kind of just in this area that I'm circling here for portions of tomorrow across the area. I do expect them to upgrade to possibly an enhanced risk for damage and winds and maybe the possible higher tornado threat for tomorrow across this area. And we're going to go ahead and jump into details here in a second, but this is what their tornado risk is highlighting. This whole green area is in the 2% tornado risk, but I do believe that there's going to be a greater enhanced wind risk here with maybe a greater tornado risk with any isolated supercell out ahead of the environment or ahead of the MCV for the most part across this area. So we'll be continuing to watch that for the potential for maybe some supercells develop out ahead of the line. Because there is going to be a low, there's going to be the MCV like this, and it's going to like have its own warm frontal boundary, which is the really deep moisture, 70 dew points feeding along that, and then ahead of that boundary you could get some supercells to develop out of this, or maybe some transient storms, but I think there's a chance to see some isolated supercells out ahead of that, and then you'll have the Bowen line that kind of pushes off to the east with straight line damaging winds up to 65 mile an hour plus, and even some large hail with some of those isolated supercells out ahead of that line. So we'll see where that MCV does develop for the most part, but if there's going to be any 5% tornado risk tomorrow added to the environment, it's probably going to be like this. Somewhere over here is going to be a 5% tornado risk for tomorrow, but we'll probably come into better mesoscale details once we get closer to the time frame, which is tomorrow. So let's go ahead and jump into more details here and look at what we're looking at here. So we'll go ahead and go into Weather Bell here. And we're going to go ahead and look at the instability surface-based cape for tomorrow. Tomorrow you can see that there's this really nice cape values here. You got the boundary up here for the most part, and then you have your significant tornado perimeters right there near and south of that boundary as well. So there's definitely the risk for tornadoes tomorrow near and south of that boundary. So it's going to be either Illinois into Indiana, and we'll see where those actually develop, but there is definitely some possibility of some tornadoes tomorrow across this area depending on how it interacts with the boundaries. And we got those helicity stripes showing up across the area here as those storms kind of move off east-southeast as they're moving east near that MCV there, and kind of going trending into portions of Indiana, central, northern, and southern portions of Indiana, obviously. But that boundary tomorrow is definitely have some play for some tornado potential tomorrow. Wind shear is going to be pretty nice along that boundary as well. You got about 40 to 50 knot wind shear there near and just on that boundary. Now we go over here to future storms. Now, one or two things are going to happen. The morning convection that does come through is the main MCV. Now, there's the possibility that MCV moves a little bit more further north, and drags that outflow boundary behind it, and that outflow boundary is going to trigger new supercell storms to development across eastern Illinois and portions of central western Indiana, which is going to have a big play for some maybe tornadic supercells along that outflow boundary, dragging behind that morning convective MCV. Now, if the MCV becomes the main event and slows down, then it's going to set the environment out ahead of it of some isolated supercells develop out ahead of it across portions of central eastern Illinois into Indiana. So there's going to be two different scenarios. If the MCV does slow down, then we could see the possibility of seeing some supercells develop out ahead of it. And then we'll have the damaging wind event behind it, and there won't be additional supercells along the dragon outflow boundary behind it because the atmosphere won't have enough time to heat up when it comes evening and then it gets dark. Now, if the MCV moves through pretty quick and leaves behind an outflow boundary across portions of central Illinois and central Indiana, then there could be newer storms that develop off that outflow boundary, become tornadic supercells, and pose a bigger severe risk for portions of central eastern and central southern Indiana. Central eastern Illinois and central southern Indiana. So we'll see how that scenario does play, but I mean, just taking a look here, you see that the NAM3KM picks up that MCV moves through, newer storms develop right off the dragon outflow boundary there across portions of central and southern Indiana, and then with that environment, you're having a pretty potent tornado risk along that boundary. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and take a look at this on the Pivotal website, because it does pick it up a little bit better at all. And here's the NAM3KM. So it's picking up right on that boundary there. Newer storms develop behind it on that boundary. And photographs on that boundary are pretty decent, so there's definitely some tornado potential with that boundary. If the MCV does move past, we get newer convection develop on the dragon outflow boundary, there could be some big time supercells, but where that boundary does set up at is still to be determined. See, the RFS has a different scenario in play. The RFS says that the MCV slows down and starts entering portions of central and western Illinois by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., right? So there's this very big, strong convective line of storms here pushing into Iowa and Illinois border here. Tomorrow, late morning hour, into the early afternoon hours, finally exiting into the Illinois, Indiana area. Now, to figure out if the system's moving slow or if this system's moving slower or faster determines on how much supercell potential we can actually get out ahead of this system or on the dragon outflow boundary. So the outflow boundary is going to extend just right here, and it drags right like this. So it drags just like this. Now the system on the RFS model is a lot slower than what the NAM3KM is showing, and it shows a very potent environment out ahead of it, southerly surface wind flow, very nice cape, very decent photographs out ahead of it. I'm sure it's underdoing cape for the most part, and then south of the outflow boundary you can see there's definitely a ton of cape, but it does pick up the potential of some supercells developing out ahead of this line right here across portions of Indiana. You can see those supercells definitely move out ahead right there into portions of northwest Ohio, central northeast. Winds are doing across the environment, and they're actually pretty decently strong. 850 millibars out of the southwest at like 30 to 40 knots. Your 700 millibar winds are really cranking, especially with the MCV, so that could be definitely some significant damaging winds there coming across portions of central northern Illinois. Central northern Illinois on tomorrow, late morning to early afternoon hours. Look at the 500 millibar winds here jumping in as well. There's a really nice 65 knot 500 millibar jet core there pushing in as well. Look at our 3KM Cape here, out ahead of the system, out ahead of the MCV, very decently strong. I do definitely think there's going to be enough vorticity to get some tornadoes going right there within the Bowen line itself, some brief spin-ups as well. But all the models do indicate that there is definitely severe potential. It just depends on if the system's moving slow or fast. We'll figure out, what's going on probably late tonight into early tomorrow morning. But there is definitely a chance that there's going to be a significant risk of damaging winds tomorrow. It just depends on where the system is going to be at when it comes to morning hours. Will determine the whole day at this point. Now, her model's just been really bad lately, so I'm not really trusting her model on anything. I believe the NAM 3KM or the RFS model will nail this setup tomorrow. So we'll go based on that, see what happens, and then we'll come back and track what's going on. So stay tuned for later updates.